Is he in a situation where he can build a dynasty now?
Well, he's got every chance, hasn't he? I don't think there's any inclination on his part to move on to pastures new. He's in his dream job, I would imagine. And yeah, why can't Klopp stay there for 5 to 10 years? Why not? I think that he's got a young team that could get better. Doesn't need any obvious improvement. There will be top-ups here and there. I think you're looking at a creative midfielder and a striker, I would say. I'd say Firmino could be upgraded and...
Fullback.
And cover for the ball.
Maybe cover for one of those.
Absolutely cover for a left-back, for Robertson, who, for me, is the best left-back.
Gomez will make that transition into the regular team, won't he?
Gomez will either be the partner for Van Dijk or the cover for Arnold or someone to compete with Arnold. So, yeah, they need a left-back, a creative midfielder, someone that will get into the box and score goals, but also play those slip passes that sometimes that they lack, Liverpool. And boy, did we see that from both teams actually in Madrid. The standard, it was one of the lowest standard finals I've ever seen, but not that it really matters now.
Adrian, did the pitch look dry to you?
Yeah, it did actually. Yeah,
I spoke to a few of my friends who were in the stadium. They said it was bone dry. It was like rubber. And it did look like they were playing on Velcro at different times. And I think,
that's a factor.
Fatigue was probably an issue. The gap between the domestic season was probably an issue. But there just seemed to be, those two teams want a slick pitch. We know this. I don't know. Maybe I'm making excuses, which they.
No, I think that's a valid point. I haven't heard anyone say that, but it's absolutely true. But yeah, no, Liverpool. The future is incredibly bright, isn't it? Why would anyone really want to leave there? That's where I know in the past that Suarez wanted to go because of Barcelona.
South American players do have that affinity with the Barcelona.
I think Van Dijk is the obvious one here. If Real Madrid or Barcelona came knocking for Van Dijk, is there now that want on his part that like I have to go? Or does he feel that we're champions of Europe?
Yeah.
Which I play for the best team or one of the two best teams in Europe. City might just be the best team in Europe. I'm already at the top of the tree. I don't have to go there. I think that's what this success has done for Klopp's team. It's ensured that these guys think, wow, I'm at the pinnacle here.
Yeah, because it's interesting, looking briefly at the Spanish press this morning, there's a story coming out that linking Coutinho to PSG. Now, if you think Liverpool effectively got Van Dijk and Alisson for Coutinho, which is can't be one of the deals of all time, he might be a warning sign to people as well, mightn't he?
Oh, I'd have thought so. I mean, that transfer even now, I mean, it's just the financing was terrible, especially when you consider things like the pressure that was already within Barcelona's wage bill when it was completed. It was just a panic. Van Dijk is one of those players that you think, right, if he was in any way available, how much money would it actually take for someone to prize him away from Liverpool? I don't think there's a fee. And like Adrian said, I want a player like that to say, I understand what Barcelona, Real Madrid, all of them are. I understand that, what they were. I'm a European champion. The same goes for Spurs. I don't want to hear Tottenham players this summer talking about, well, I need to play at the level of the game. If you want more money, come out and say you want more money. That's fine. But don't say it's a level of the game issue because you're already being catered for in that regard. And you're already being put at on the very finest stage that club football has to offer. And Van Dijk's the same. Van Dijk is, it would take a preposterous financial offer, presumably from a PSG.
It's Salah as well. It's like if they offered him £500,000 a week, and Liverpool say, well, we can only give you half of that, but we want to make you a club legend here. Then the choice is simple, isn't it? And it's up to the individuals if they want to take the money or not. But the big picture now is that the English clubs, the English giants, are better teams than the Spanish giants right now. So I don't think there will be this exodus.
You mentioned...
Is Liverpool's lack of activity in the transfer window a show of strength and faith in their solid squad, or its complacency? Even City, who have had better squads than LFC, have invested in Mahrez and Rodri in the last two windows. We're to think no big incoming is good for the team. Is it good for the team, or is it better for the team to keep it solid?
Well, Liverpool have a very good team. They ran Manchester City close for the title last season. They won the Champions League. You can understand their stated position that they don't feel it needs a great deal of work on it, and it can benefit from being held together and developing it. And they do have that target in front of them in the sense that winning the Premier League, ending that long, multiple-decade drought of English league titles, is still the overriding ambition of the club. It hasn't been achieved yet. That can be used to drive the players on to do more this season than they did last season. You saw Pep Guardiola after his first Premier League title with Manchester City talking about how difficult it was to do that back to back, and how his focus was on preventing the players from becoming complacent and getting a better performance still the next season and winning the title again. I think Liverpool psychologically have an advantage there because they haven't achieved the principal goal, which is to win the league title. Do they need reinforcements? Yes, they clearly do need reinforcements. They don't have cover at left back for Andy Robertson. I've said many times that there's probably a lack of creativity in the midfield, which would, if they could add a creative midfielder, would strengthen things. They could do with cover up front. They've managed to secure Divock Origi to a longer-term deal, so they now have an alternative centre forward who is riding a wave of confidence after his contributions at the tail end of the season. There is a long-standing interest in Nicola Pepe at Lille. They have talked to the player's agent about a move. The feeling at Lille is that deal will only happen if Liverpool sell one of their top strikers, and at Lille they believe that the possibility is that Mo Salah will move down the line, and then Nicola Pepe has been identified as a replacement there. There are obviously limitations on Liverpool from a financial perspective in that they have spent heavily on players in recent seasons, breaking transfer records on multiple occasions. They took a lot of money for Philippe Coutinho, which allowed them to lay off much of the transfer fee costs. But alongside those transfers, they've handed out very substantial salaries to the players they bought, and also upgraded almost every key player in their squad during that time. So I think the increase in their wage bill for the 17-18 season was over 20%, with an expectation that they might do something again last season of that level. So they do have a financial limit on them in terms of, if you'd want to go and do Nicola Pepe this summer and add them to the squad and give yourself more options, which would probably be the dream scenario, then you're looking at 60 million plus to do that deal. And whether they can afford to do that and give the player the wages is the question. I think the comparison here is, where are City, where are Liverpool? And as things stand, there is the possibility that Liverpool could go into next season without adding any players and be in a relatively stronger position in terms of where their squad is to what City's is. I would say if Sané goes, then City will be weaker going into next season, whereas Liverpool are effectively where they were before, and potentially a bit stronger with that psychological edge of having won a major title and the defined target of the Premier League ahead of them.
So, Duncan, I spoke to someone close to Jurgen Klopp in the last week or so, and asked the same question, in fact, that Samuel Dave has asked us. And the response I got was quite interesting. And that was when, after the City tour with the Champions League trophy, etc., Klopp told each and every one of his players in a kind of like effectively team meeting, look, you're European champions. You've got to go now and have time off, rest and recuperate, enjoy yourselves. But come back remembering you're European champions, because I have faith in you and you have to have faith that next season we'll do something special. And I'm told also that he stayed in touch with all of his players who were playing in Copa America, African Cup of Nations, and even the ones who were just simply on the beach. And stayed in touch and said, look, remember what I said. You're coming back to something special next season. And what we know about Klopp is unlike Guardiola, who can be quite a cold fish and difficult to interpret and quite difficult to communicate with in certain ways, Klopp's very touchy-feely. He's very emotional with his players. Remember those scenes on the pitch after the Champions League win? I think probably he is gambling. And I say gamble, meaning it is a punt, that in not bringing players in this summer and improving the squad, he's saying to the players he has, now go win the Premier League. I'm not going to replace you. I'm not going to put you under pressure in terms of your place in the team. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my full faith in you that we came so close last season to beating City to the Premier League title, but we did win the Champions League. And this is a big mental improvement for those players in terms of winning a massive trophy. And so by putting his faith and by stating his faith in those same players, he's hoping that they will now go to a different level, and that's a level of beating City in the Premier League. Now, as I've said, this is definitely a punt. Sir Alex Ferguson used to say, and of course he's Liverpool fans' favourite manager, that after he'd won a trophy, the first thing he'd say to his team was, right, we have to go again and be better. But usually he adds a couple of players just to say, listen, no one's safe here. Now, Klopp, if he chooses not to do that, I think is putting himself under more pressure than perhaps he needs to be, because he certainly does have, I think, the financial wherewithal to at least strengthen the squad or augment the squad in some ways.
I'm not sure it's a choice on Klopp's part. There was an interview during the summer where he talked about how the other clubs are spending significant amounts, and we need to be spending significant amounts as well. I think Klopp trusts very much the people who do the transfer business for him. He trusts the team who seek replacements for the areas and improvements for the areas that he feels the team need additions in. But I'm not convinced that if Klopp had his way and there was a freedom of budget to spend, that he wouldn't spend to at least augment with a couple of players, because their squad is a bit shallow. The best 11 are very obvious and very good, but a lack of backup at fullback, when fullback is such an important position, or turned into such an important position for them from an attacking perspective last season, the lack of backup, a real reliable backup to Mane and Salah. Again, two players fundamental to the way they play, would, I think, worry most managers. In an ideal world, you would get replacements or alternatives into the squad so you could share the load some more, and you were in a position to adapt when injuries come along, because they didn't really suffer many injuries to key players last season. If you're trying to compete simultaneously for Champions League and Premier League, and trying to compete in a scenario where you're looking at the best part of 100 points to win the Premier League, it's risky to depend on all of your top players, or the majority of your top players, staying fit for an entire season.